Welcome to our podcast, This Life, the Chronicles of Autism Moms. I'm Alison and I'm joined each week by amazing women who happen to have children on the spectrum. We talk about navigating the ups and downs of parenting kids with autism and how that affected us and our lives as women, professionals and mothers. Strap in, grab some tissues. Sometimes you'll cry from empathy and others from laughter. Join us on our journey of this life. Hi, and welcome to today's episode, Food Frustrations. I'm Alison and today I'm joined by Suzana, Maha and Hasna. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Hi, lovely for you to join us today.
Thank you for having us.
And today we're talking about food frustrations, our children and food, and our frustrations with their eating habits.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So, Suzana, I think we will make a start with you.
Me.
Tell us about your son's
eating habits,
or how they make you feel, his eating habits, and your experiences and what's been,
So I'm just gonna take you back in time a bit. So Victor has always been, as a baby, like an awesome eater. Once we started introducing foods, he literally ate everything. He loved everything. And at the age of, I think I would say about a year and a few months, some symptoms started setting in, which I obviously had no idea about, which is eventually turned out to be a sensory processing disorder. And from a food point of view, the way that manifested was he started slowly dropping foods. It started with some fruits, eventually into veggies. And his issue is really color and, I don't know, maybe taste and texture too, but it just kind of basically got narrower and narrower, where all he ate was what they call beige colored foods. So we do carbs, he does protein, he does dairy. Even like with candies and things like that, he doesn't really eat anything unless it's like baked goods or maybe like some chocolates and things like that, but nothing like stuffed or whatever. So we don't have the issue of him having all the horrible, nasty candies and things like that, but you get zero fruit and veg.
You don't get that balanced diet.
Yeah, so I think it just, honestly, we are not in a place where this is a resolved issue. We have worked on it on and off, but it always gives me so much anxiety.
Right.
Because I know what that can do to a person down the road. Like, I worry about his health. I worry about, do I need to keep him on vitamins? And it's really difficult. I think with food therapy type situations, which we've done on and off, it's the slowest progressing type of therapy. There's definitely some benefit to it. And really what it is exposure. But with everything else that you have to work on, I always had the issue with trying to keep that up, along with all the other therapies, all the other things you have to practice. So I just always have this insane amount of guilt because I am so burnt out that I, don't have the energy to even deal with that every once in a while. And sometimes, again, we work on it for some months.
It's probably a fight as well every day, right?
It is, because it stresses them out as well. Yeah. So it's not like an easygoing thing. It shouldn't be a stressful thing for them. It should be them playing with food and having fun. But it is stressful for me and very triggering for me. Therefore, I can't be the one doing this with him. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, going to therapy once or twice a week is not going to give you the effect that you need. And the problem with the on again, off again type of food therapy situation that we've done is once you stop and you don't keep up what you've been doing, you kind of lose all that progress.
Right. So there's no consistency, and then you go back to square one again.
Ultimately, honestly, now that he's older, I'm talking to him a little bit more about it. It doesn't make a huge difference, but for a very short period of time, it's very random. We had a talk, I remember it was within the last month, and he just had a, I think a tiny piece of lettuce or something. And he's never, I don't think, had lettuce in his whole life. Or there was the one crazy random time where he just grabs a raw garlic. Did I ever tell you about this, Alison? Yeah. He says, and it's not that he actually eats it and chews it and swallows it, but he kind of does little teeth marks in it. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to cry at this point,
Garlic.
For him to grab it and put it near his oral cavity and try to like
and it's garlic.
put who eats raw garlic? I know it's super healthy, but it's just like though those little things feel like amazing wins, But
so apart from his general health and well-being and how much anxiety you get from that, how else has that caused you kind of anxiety and stress? Because obviously it started as a maybe perhaps as a toddler picky eater thing.
I think there's one thing that really I just kind of feel like, I wish there was someone that I knew that could have like immediately put me in the right situation to deal with it. When this started, everyone was like, oh, he's just a toddler. They go through picky eating phases. And it's not a picky eating phase kind of situation. And it's very annoying because people don't really understand that. Yeah. And I think following that advice, then at one point, the other advice that I got from everyone was hide it in his food. So I think that's the biggest mistake I made with him as a toddler, because when he dropped foods, I was so focused on figuring out how do I like hide fruits and veggies in his food. Like I remember I got like this amazing a zucchini chocolate like muffin type of situation, and it's really good. You can't tell, like you can't tell. But I just kind of like got so preoccupied with like trying to find these things and trying to do all these things, and and it takes a lot of time, but I completely dropped the ball on the fact that they actually still need to see food how it is, and you still need to expose them to that. And I only realized that years later when I started therapy. And I think the other thing that I kind of really would get annoyed with, and I think just not having the understanding just adds to your frustration. From social like kind of point of view, some people like understand and then expect and like then try to cater to him basically when they know what he eats and what he doesn't. But like I have a friend who, of course, I love so much, but doesn't understand it. So she'll always say, if I say something about me being worried about his situation or his health or whatever, she would just say, oh, my older son used to be like that. It's okay, don't worry about it. Like they'll get over it at one point or another. And it's like, and at one point I tried to explain it to her, but then I don't think it really
sunk in.
So then I just kind of avoid then like having that type of conversation with somebody that is not on your level, like they don't understand it,
making a stress about nothing, whereas actually you're talking about a long-term potential issue,
definitely,
that he's not going to grow out of unless you help him. And it's not something that will
work itself out. It's not like, I'm just going to get over this and all of a sudden start eating like, and I think what bothers me as well is some people are like, oh, my son or daughter are the same way, but like they eat, let's say not all fruits and veg, but they'll have at least 1 or 2, 3 different types of choices of fruit and veg that they eat. Like I would kill for that. Like I'm happy with like him having just a few
apples, just one fruit, like start with one.
Definitely. So when there's like absolutely nothing at all, it's very frustrating. And it's just that anxiety of like, how is this going to affect his health? And there's also that whole concept of I think certain foods and things also affect their like behavior and stuff like that, where and a big thing is like gluten and dairy, and I'm like, he lives on gluten and dairy. How can I cut that out of his what is he gonna eat?
So you can't even experiment with things that might help
like
him.
I include some gluten-free things. Like I have a gluten-free pasta that he loves. I do like this gluten-free like cakes and cookies and stuff like that. Not everything, but sometimes. But like other than like, he eats bread, he eats all these other things. I'm not gonna put him on.
What I mean. You can't even experiment and try, like she was saying. Like if you want to get him off, because that's all he eats.
Because he gets so picky where like he'll have only a certain 1 or 2 types of bread, one specific type of like fruit yogurt. That's like the only fruit related thing that he eats. And it has to be a strawberry flavored one. It's actually a very specific brand. There's only like one type of cheese that he eats. And that, like when I travel,
I was just about to ask you, how does that work for you when you travel?
It's hard because, like, depending on where I'm going, if I know the items are there, I'll just like go to the supermarket once I get there and buy a few things, so it's fine. But like, there was 1 or 2 years when I would go back home to Jordan and that specific type of cheese isn't always there, and I'd literally buy a bag full of cheese that I know, like, that's gonna last me for those 1.5 or 2 months that I'm there.
So what would happen if somebody gave you some advice as another parent or whatever, just meaning well, and just saying, well, just don't let them eat then, just leave them, don't give them.
The worst advice.
What a disaster.
And what would happen? Would they eat something else, or would you?
No,
of course not, right?
They won't.
Yeah.
And the behaviour then goes.
So you're in a vicious,
a
vicious circle. What's your?
And sorry to interrupt. I know you want to say, but like, to get them to try even a different, like, he eats bread obviously, but to get him to try even a different type of bread. Like, we're not even talking about fruits and vegetables. We're just talking about like
sometimes.
it's very very different.
I have that with Omar.
And very stressful.
And so then you're actually dealing with your own anxiety, but then you're also dealing with the knock-on effect of a child that's not eaten.
Yes.
And also their own anxiety about the fact that for some reason they don't understand why you're not giving them what you want. Yeah. What's your experience, Maha? Same or
It's
a little bit different?
Very similar. I think we all have the same stories. And I think what people don't understand is, like, neurologically, their brain is processing that food as in a totally different way to just your picky eater that just doesn't like the taste. Like, I see my son like almost about to throw up if I force him to eat something, and I think I don't want him to have an unhealthy relationship with food. I want him to see food as something that is good and something positive, instead of it being a battle or a negative experience. Like, I don't think that's good for the long term. So you're thinking about the psychological ramifications of it's too much, and so it's a very like, we've tried different foods, and I think, as you said, Suzana, like, just making sure that the food is always there. Just even if they just see it on their plate and don't eat it is fine.
And that's also like a social interaction sort of situation. You go out to dinners and stuff. Like, my son at one point, and he's kind of like not so out of the woods yet, but if you have just like a broccoli on his plate, even though he knows he like does not have to eat it, but you just need to be with it, just like okay with it being on your plate. Like, freak out at the table. Like, what do you do when you're at a restaurant?
Do you know what? It's so funny because I remember, he doesn't do it now, but Noah used to, wherever we were, if he had something on his plate that he wouldn't want, even if he was sat next to a total stranger, that would end up from his plate onto someone else's plate. So when they'd turn around and all of a sudden they'd have like, they'd order chicken, but they've got a piece of salmon on their plate because he doesn't want it. So he'd put it on someone else's plate and be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to eat my food. And they'd be like, or equally, he'd be like, oh, but I quite like the look of that chicken, so I'll swap my chicken for our salmon for your chicken. Doesn't care.
Just grab.
And I think if you're foodies as well, and you guys are foodies, you know, you enjoy food, you like trying different foods. We all do, you know, all of our group like food. But it's hard in those situations because, you know, it doesn't really encourage you to go out and try new things when it's not an exciting time to try different foods. No. It's like a scary time. That's right. And
definitely. It makes me really sad, to be honest, because I recently came to the realization of how like much we associate certain foods with like memories and like mom's cooking and like the first thing like the first time whenever you go home or to a place that you've been before where let's say you love certain restaurants, you're like, I can't wait to go home because I want to eat this and that. Like, he doesn't have that. And I feel again, not blaming parents because I do this all the time, but we enable that because then when we're going somewhere, it's always like we either choose a place where we know we can at least find something
yeah.
that we can order for him, even though we have to like special order something. Or if we have to go to a specific place where we know like there's nothing that he can eat there, we make sure he has his lunch before we go. So then it's like, why is he even going? He's not really gonna
Why
be
are you here?
I mean, no, I don't mean it that way, but like
exactly.
for him it's just gonna be like
it's the reality.
Yeah.
Going and watching everyone eat.
Yes,
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
he gets his iPad, and then it's like we go back to the iPad. Like, yes, I hate it, and then I hate that he associates that with eating, and I like at home I limit it, but when we go out sometimes,
but but also that's a great compromise, and I think it's a very good point that it's okay to say no to this, and it's okay to get to a point whereby you have to have a life.
Yes.
So ultimately, at the end of the day, if you want to go out for lunch, or you've been invited out for lunch or dinner or whatever, and you want to bring him along,
yes,
and he doesn't want to eat because it's past his lunchtime, or he's not going to be able to eat, I don't know, cheese and bread in a sushi restaurant, but you want him there because it's kind of a good thing to do is to bring him, because we want our family to be together.
Yes,
he needs to see it. He needs to be there. But is that okay to give him an iPad in a restaurant and not have him eat?
Absolutely it is.
Absolutely fine. Yeah. It's totally fine, because you're doing the best
that you
can in the situation.
It's just like having to.
It's frustrating.
Yeah,
and and also if you're with people that you don't necessarily know, because obviously you do a lot of entertaining of people that don't necessarily, you don't know on a personal level sometimes. So in that instance, then
it's kind of embarrassing. Like, do you have to when you are, let's say you're invited to somebody's house that you don't really know, you're not gonna call and say like, what are you guys cooking for lunch?
You got cheese and bread.
Do you have some chicken? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
But it's got to be this type.
Yes.
And then you sound like a spanner before you've even started, because then it goes into, again, what we've just been talking about is that explanation. You need to give a full explanation as to why. And then people are like, oh yeah, I'll get whatever you need.
Sure.
But it's always that, they always need to come with a label, these children, like an introduction label to exactly a book,
oh my God.
a novel.
What I eat.
I'm going to send you this PDF. Before I come over.
There you go.
Just have a read. See you in a couple of weeks.
Do you still want us to come?
Sign here.
So funny.
Exactly. It's a waiver.
Sign here. Oh my God.
If anything goes wrong, there's no judgment.
And
I think that's the funny thing, is that we put so much emphasis on how it should be.
Yeah.
We put so much emphasis on, well, at this age they should be doing this, and this age, and that all of that just goes out of the window because he needs to be happy.
Yeah.
You guys need to be comfortable and happy, and you need to have a good time.
Sure.
So if you're, sitting there having a good time, he's quite clearly having a good time because he's sat there not being made to eat vegetables that he hates, and also he's got his iPad. Everyone's happy. But for some reason, the society says that's not what we should be doing. I remember having lunch with you one day, and you'd invited some other people that we knew, but we didn't, we were mutual friends.
Yeah.
And I so don't care about iPads to a point. When we're out, if we're in a situation where I've got my 3 children with me, I've got my husband with me, and we're out for a lunch with friends, I'm just like,
do whatever.
Do you know what? Eat
want.
what you want. Do what you want.
Yes.
It's fine.
Yeah.
But the family were there that you also had invited.
I'm trying to remember which
I'll
luncheon.
tell you after this. And there's no judgment from my side.
Yeah.
I don't care. But I came in, and my little girl, Lily, my little girl, was like, I'm going to go to the playroom, because they were putting on some entertainment and stuff. My older daughter was like, I don't want to go to the playroom, because she was like 11 or something. So I was like, okay, fine. Here, have an iPad.
Yes.
And then Noah was like, well, I was like, the iPad. And that was literally 10 minutes after getting there, because I was like, I want to have a glass of wine.
Yes.
I want to have my lunch. Yes. Everyone's going to have their lunch served to them in a minute.
Yeah.
It was a buffet, so it was everything. Everyone just have what you want. And the lady, your friend, looked at me and went, I didn't bring my iPads, because I didn't think I was like, bad luck. I was like, I've got a phone if you want my phone. I was like, I don't care. I'm not apologizing to you.
Yeah.
Like, you can judge. I am past that judgment stage now. If
Yeah,
I'm out like that, there are times when it's not a good time to do iPads. And, you know, if we're in our home environment and there's stuff happening, learning moments, all of that, teaching moment, everything, fine, don't do it. But in that kind of time, I don't care anymore. I really don't care. As long as everyone's having a good time, do what you want. You know, if there are kids there for you to play with and it's one of my neurotypical kids, go off with your mates. Yeah. Put the iPads away. If there's no entertainment for them,
it's fine.
Whatever.
It really is fine.
Hasna, you have a different situation, which medically is...
my son has type 1 diabetes. He is, unlike everything we've heard, my son is a food lover. He experiments, always has, will eat any type from sushi to Indian to, which is amazing, but sadly he has type 1 diabetes. And the struggle comes with portion control. When is it too much? When is it too little? He loves to stuff his face. He loves all types of food. And he understands. He actually really does understand his condition finally, now that he's 15. He's on a pump, so we're very blessed. But he'll be like, how much should I give myself, like insulin? And we'll just, eat sporadically. Do
you think that's to do with his autism, or do you think that's to do with the fact that he just loves food?
I mean, not every autistic person doesn't like food. My son loves food, and I've seen over the years a lot. It's not that the spectrum is so wide that really it's not like some people do. My son adores all types of food, from Indian to sushi to anything. The problem is with portion control and also with his medical condition. Right. How do you regulate? He just goes off. He started to finally understand diabetes, how it works, thanks to the pump, because he knows when it's going up, and
so he can visually see that. He
can visually see that, and he understands, Mom, how many units should I give myself? But he still doesn't let his diabetes kind of get in the way. He loves eating too much. And sometimes we do end up with episodes, and it is difficult to regulate with high sugar episodes, or sometimes low. And that's the thing with diabetes. Diabetes and autism is quite complex, because
it's a bad combination.
It is an interesting combination, because you want them to be independent, and I'm hopeful because he's understanding the dynamics. It just, he doesn't have a limit. He doesn't know when, like if we take him to a buffet, he'll stuff his face until his stomach hurts, and you'll see it, and he doesn't stop, and it's like he craves food. He's a vacuum.
Noah's the same. And I've seen them together.
And the thing, if they're in a buffet or we're invited, he'll just grab everything. He has no regulation when it comes to food. There's no way, but it's been an interesting battle. I mean, it's just that I think that's more. I'm not even sure if that's autism. That might just be, what it is. I think we forget that our kids are not just autism. They're also kids and teenagers and whatnot.
15.
Exactly.
Honestly, I think with time he'll probably get to a good place and kind of know his body better and know how to portion control and all of that.
I hope so.
But it's definitely
he is better. No, he wants to eat. He wants to give himself the insulin, but he wants to eat whatever he wants. He wants again, it's not...
and also that's kind of fair enough, really. Like, do you know what I mean? It's tough for him, I'm sure. Being able to see all of this food and then not be able to eat what he wants. So ladies, based on what we know, what are your top tips for food frustrations from your perspective, for parents that might be listening, or people that might be listening that have got children in the same situation, from your experiences? For you personally, how do you best manage your frustrations for your child's food?
So I would say, I'm going to have 2 top tips today. My first top tip is really related to more of how you react, or, be careful with who you share your story with. Not everyone's going to understand. And, just kind of, if you do hear any comments, of course, you can always take the time to teach people and educate, but it's totally okay.
Business.
It's totally okay if you don't want to do that, and just kind of don't take it to heart. Just let it go, because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And the second top tip is really more about, the kids. And I think that would be, don't forget to expose them to stuff. I think that was the mistake that I did early on. And, maybe always go to a professional to give you more of an awareness, because just listening to the whole, they're just picky eaters, they'll get out of it, with that, really killed, and I kind of feel like it really affected us in a negative way.
Right.
So yeah, just if you're worried about something, go get
Just
it
go with your gut. Go
Yeah,
check it out, get some advice.
definitely.
And then work on it from there.
Yes.
Okay. Maha?
Oh, I probably the same. Probably Suzana probably said it all. I definitely, similar to her, have should have exposed. I'm a very plain eater myself, so I think allowing him to see different foods that I'm eating, even if we tend to eat the same food, which is all quite plain, and I think I should have, looking back, made more of an effort for him to see me eating a strawberry or a banana or something, even if, just daily having that exposure. I think it may have. Not my egg. All I have is a boiled egg. So I would probably say, yeah, definitely a bit more effort in terms of exposing them and just letting them see how yummy it is to eat a different food. And hopefully with time, they'll start opening up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, Hasna?
I would say, again, I don't have that issue. I do have it with my young ones. I think expose them but never force them. I find that when I force them, they're like, no, you're eating it, it's like a no. He's already put a negative association with a certain type of food, and I make sure that it's, by forcing him, I make sure that he's never going to have that food again, or it's going to be very difficult. And so really just put it there, let them experiment, let them touch, let them, especially when they're younger. But yeah, I think I would say that.
Great. Thank you, ladies. It's lovely to see you. Thank you for sharing your top tips with us. Thank you for joining us for this episode of This Life, Chronicles of Autism Moms. We'll see